عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه دائما أبدا صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Grab a mask right there. And I'll go over that a little later, inshallah. We've been talking about Imam Hussein al-Islam and the events leading up to Karbala. And last week, we mentioned where he had sent Muslim bin Aqil, radiallahu anhu, his cousin, to Kufa to evaluate the situation and how so many thousands of people had given him allegiance in the name of Imam Hussein al-Islam, and yet when it came time to actually do something, and they go to the governor's house where Ibn Ziyad is in charge, and he simply threatens them, that all of these people disappear. And so as we mentioned, eventually Imam Muslim is arrested, taken into custody, and then, he's brought before the people. And Ibn Ziyad, he wants him to stand up and say some things against Imam Hussein al-Islam and in favor of Yazid. And so he says, he takes them to the top of the house, and from the roof, he's going to make this proclamation. And there he starts praising Imam Hussein al-Islam and cursing Yazid. And so they execute him right there and throw his body down. So the same day that Imam Muslim is martyred in Kufa is the day that Imam Hussein al-Islam sets out from Makkah. And so in the meantime, what had been going on, as I mentioned before, Imam Hussein al-Islam had received a letter from Imam Muslim saying, look, everything's good, the people are willing to support you, so come on. And so he starts making all these arrangements to go. And then, in the meantime, when people realize that he's truly about to leave Makkah, they start coming to him and saying that, look, please don't go, stay. And all of them say pretty much the same thing, which is that, please don't go. You know what the people of Kufa did to your father and what they did to your brother. These are not reliable people, so please don't go and stay here and you'll be safe, inshallah. None of them, because there are people these days who say, see, all of these companions, including Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Zubair, Abdullah ibn Ja'far, all of these people are coming to Imam Hussein al-Islam and telling him, don't go. So that proves that he shouldn't have gone. He did the wrong thing. Astaghfirullah. But the interesting thing is that none of these people ever said that, look, please don't go because this is the wrong thing to do. All they said was, don't go because, what will happen is that the people of Kufa are not reliable, and so they will betray you. That's the only thing that they said. to the extent that when Abdullah ibn Umar he came and he said to Imam Hussein, please don't go, because again, the same reasons he gave. And Imam Hussein al-Islam says to him, he says that my grandfather, Rasulullah ﷺ, told me that the Kaaba will be desecrated on account of a lamb. Someone innocent. Because the people will come after him, and because they're trying to get to him, they will desecrate the Kaaba. And he says, I do not wish to be that lamb. And we know from history that that lamb was Abdullah ibn Zubair, radiallahu anhu, when Yazid sent the army against him. And we'll go over that later, inshallah. Abdullah ibn Ja'far, radiallahu anhu, who is the cousin of Imam Hussein al-Islam, he's the son of Ja'far al-Tayyar, radiallahu anhu. He is also the brother-in-law of Imam Hussein al-Islam, because he is the husband of Bibi Zainab, radiallahu anha. And so he comes to him, he says, look, again, the initial conversation is, please don't go, because these people are not reliable and they will betray you. And when he realized that Imam Hussein al-Islam was dead set on leaving, he asked him, he says, then tell me, if you're insisting on going, why are you going? So he says, by Allah, please tell me. And he says, because of the way you've asked me this, I will tell you this much, that I'm going and I will go and fulfill the promise that I have made to my grandfather. And then he asks him, he says, what is that promise? And he says, look, I've told you enough. I will not tell you anything further. When Imam Hussein al-Islam, when he sets out from Makkah, he sets out with 72 people. So altogether, there's, including him, 72. Of which 62 are men, and 10 are women and children. And amongst the 10 women and children, includes the two wives of Imam Hussein al-Islam, Bibi Sharbano and Rabab. His sister, Bibi Zainab. His daughter, Sakina, or Sukaina. And amongst the children, of course, is his 6-month-old child, Ali Asghar. All three of his sons accompany him on this journey. Ali Akbar, Ali Awsat, and Ali Asghar. Ali Awsat will eventually become known as Imam Zain al-Abidin. There are roughly about 50 people who are his friends and students who also accompany him on the journey. Among the household, you have 4 of his nephews, 4 sons of Imam Hassan al-Islam. Imam Qasim, Imam Abdullah, Imam Abu Bakr, and Imam Umar alayhi salam. 5 of his brothers. And these are the sons of Ali through different wives. Ali radiallahu anhu did not marry anyone else until Bibi Fatima passed, and then when she passed, then he married various women. And so among these brothers are, of course, the most famous is Abbas, who is the flag bearer of Imam Hussein al-Islam, so Abbas Alamdar. You also have his brother Muhammad bin Ali, who is different than Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, who is also a son of Ali, through a different mother. So Muhammad ibn Hanafiya did not accompany Imam Hussein al-Islam in this. So you have Muhammad bin Ali, Ja'far bin Ali, Umar bin Ali, and Uthman bin Ali. So these are the 5 sons of Imam Ali, or Sayyidina Ali Karamallah Wajh, who accompanied Imam Hussein al-Islam in this way, on this journey. You also have 3 cousins who are the brothers of Imam Muslim, who was already sent. So you have Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, and Ja'far ibn Aqil. Radiallahu anhu. So these are the members of the household. And also among the women, I forgot, including his sister Zainab, his sister Kulthum also accompanied him in this journey. When they set out, They set out from Makkah on the 8th of Zil Hajj, which is a very interesting point to understand. Because all of the people are coming into Makkah, because 8th of Zil Hajj, for those who know, is the day that everybody goes to Mina to begin the rites of the Hajj. So everybody is coming into Makkah to go to Mina, yet Imam Hussein al-Islam is leaving Makkah. Because these people are coming to protect a ritual. But the ritual has no meaning if there is no Islam, if there is no Iman. Imam Hussein al-Islam is leaving to protect the Iman of everyone. And to understand this point, as Imam Hussein al-Islam is leaving, Farazdak, who is a very well-known Arab poet, is bringing his mother to Makkah to perform the Hajj. Farazdak, during the time of Ali, Farazdak's father fought alongside with Ali during the battle of the camel, of Jamal. And then he brought his son to Ali and said that he is a very good poet, so you can use him, because again, poetry was the media of the time. So you can use him to propagate your message. So Ali told him, go and memorize the Quran, which he tried, but he never completed. Eventually he became the poet of the kings. And when we talk about okay, I'll announce afterwards, inshallah. There's a mask there, so I'm just asking everybody, gives us certain shifts to wear the mask today and next week, inshallah. So Farazdak, he became the poet of the kings, and the propaganda that they would spew out, and they would use him as the medium. His most famous poem, however, became the poem that he said in honor of Imam Zain al-Abidin. And that's something we've talked about in the past, and I'll talk about again later, inshallah. So Farazdak is entering. Imam Hussein al-Islam knows Farazdak. Farazdak knows Imam Hussein al-Islam. And so Imam Hussein al-Islam, he asked Farazdak, because Farazdak is coming from Kufa. So he asked him, what is the condition of the people of Kufa? And Farazdak, he responds, he says that their hearts are with you, but their swords are with Banu Umayyah. They may be leaning toward you, but they will do what Banu Umayyah tells them to do. So when it comes down to actually showing what they, or proving what they say, they will not support you. So this is what he says. Imam Hussein al-Islam, of course, this is the mission he has to take. So he continues on the mission. Abdullah ibn Amr bin al-As, radiallahu anhu. When he sees Farazdak and he sees Imam Hussein al-Islam leaving, he says to Farazdak, he knows both, he knows Farazdak as well. So he says to Farazdak, he says, why don't you go and join Imam Hussein al-Islam, because this is what you want. This is what you want to do, so why don't you go and join him? And Farazdak, he responds, he says, I am afraid of what they will do to him. This is why I'm not joining him, because I am afraid of what they will do to him. And Abdullah ibn Amr, he says that, what can they do to him? This is the grandson of Rasulullah. What can they do to him? I mean, who will dare do anything against the grandson of Rasulullah? So what are you talking about? This is what happens when good forgets the levels, or forgets that evil has no limits. For the believers, even in war, we have limits. In everything we do, there are limits. In every condition, there are limits. And we are not allowed to go beyond those limits. Falsehood has no limits. Falsehood can do anything, and it does anything and everything. Lying, cheating, killing, and it doesn't matter who it is. You know, if it suits their needs, then falsehood will kill someone who is on the path of falsehood will kill his own mother. And when those on the path of truth forget this, and we think, oh no, they won't do this, then we've already lost. Because Shaitan, again, also has no limits. Actually, in reality, Shaitan has his limits, but his followers have no limits. I mean, there are certain things even Shaitan doesn't do. That those who follow him, he gives them no boundaries. And this is why the mission of Imam Hussein al-Islam was so important. Because again, when those on the path of truth, or those who are trying to be on the path of truth, forget that those on the other side are willing to do anything and everything, then we start following into their traps. I mean, you look at what is going on today, and this is not something new for today. You know, this is something that's been going on for a long time. That you have many people that are willing to sell their souls for a few pennies. And you have many people who, in the name of Islam, sell themselves for a few pennies. If you look, throughout history, the enemies of Islam, even if you look at like when the Mongols invaded, when the Crusaders came in and fought against the believers, who were the first people that they bought? Scholars. They bought off scholars because they knew now we can get them to say anything, and the people think, this is a scholar. How can he lower himself to the point of saying something against Allah and His Messenger? So whatever he's saying must be right. The British, not only did they buy scholars, but they produced scholars. So, so not only did they buy them, but they have a whole factory of producing them. There's this guy who's reliable, who was talking, and he mentioned that he was in Dubai, and the adhan was called, and it was time to go for salat, and this guy who looks like a Maulvi, he's a scholar, so he asked him, "Aren't you going to come pray?" He says, "No, I've retired." It's like here, preachers, they retire. So he says, "I've retired." And he says clearly, he tells the guy bluntly, he said, "I'm Jewish, but I used to be the imam here." And you listen to their Arabic, and it's very good. And they can rattle off the hadiths, verses of the Quran. But everything is, the reasoning or the basis for everything is falsehood. Just again like when Ali radiallahu anhu, when he had to deal with the Khawarij, and the Khawarij did not go away. Ali radiallahu anhu said that the Khawarij are going to be here until the end. Their names have changed, their faces have changed, but the ideology has stayed. So what did he say about them? He says that what they say is true, but what they infer by it is falsehood. the statement is true because they were quoting from the Quran. You know, we look at, again, I mean, you don't have to look far in history. And you can start from the beginning of history and come on down this way, or you can start from here and go back. The same thing repeats over and over and over. And those who are supposed to be on the path of truth keep forgetting that falsehood has no limits. And so, either masculinely, either masculinely. And so then, you know, when we look at this, you know, this is one of the reasons why Imam Hussein al-Islam is having to take this step. Because again, you know, it's like I was listening to this so-called scholar who was talking, and there's a poem by another scholar where the translation of the poem is that after every Karbala, Islam is given life again. कि इस्लाम जिंदा होता है हर करबला के बाद. And so this scholar is saying that, you know, he's ridiculing the poem and the poet. He's saying, you know, and the poet actually is a scholar too. So he's saying, oh, what does this mean? You know, Islam was there even at the time of Karbala. He said you had faqih, you know, those judges, Islamic judges giving rulings. You had Sharia being implemented. You know, if somebody stole, their hand was cut off. If somebody murdered, they were executed. You know, you had the adhan being called in the masajid 5 times a day. You had people making salat. You have all of these scholars and huffaz and all of this. So where? He's saying, how is Islam dead? Why does Islam need to be given life again? There is no Islam without Iman. You know, it's like carrying around a bird cage without a bird. You know, if somebody's walking around with the bird cage and the bird in it is dead, you know, they walk around and they say, oh, see my bird, see my bird. You know, everybody's going to say, oh, what an idiot. He's lost his mind. And this is our condition now. That we walk around, and for the small percentage of people that even go through the rituals, you know, we walk around like, oh, you know, we've done something. We've done this favor to Allah because we made salat. Or we fasted, or we gave some charity, or we did this, or we did that, and we've done a favor to Allah. You know, and say, oh, you know. And the Iman is dead. This is why Abu Jahl did not say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, because he understood what it meant. I mean, you have to give Abu Jahl that much. He was the kafir and he was the worst of the kuffar. He was the worst of the disbelievers, but he wasn't a hypocrite. He is Abu Jahl because he knew Rasulullah ﷺ was the messenger of Allah, but he chose not to accept him. This is why he is not just ignorant, but he is the father of ignorance. But the reason he didn't say that, he didn't simply say, oh, you know, like us, oh, we say the kalma. Because he knew what it meant. He knew everything that went along with it. And we say it, you know, it's lip service for us. We have no idea what we're saying. And I'm not talking about, you know, like the actual meaning of the words individually. I'm saying, what does it truly mean? When I have accepted Allah as my creator, as the only one to be worshipped, and as I have accepted Rasulullah ﷺ as the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, if we want to know what that truly means, we need to look at the life of Imam Hussein al-Islam, who gave life to Islam by giving his blood. I'll explain afterwards, when there's somebody to explain to. You know, we look at those who truly understood the meaning of the kalma. You know, we look at Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, Umar, Uthman, Ali. And there is distinction here, you know, which many people forget. Is that accepting or loving the household of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not a sunnah. Loving the household of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is fard. It is an obligation. And even so-called scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah have written this. Loving the companions of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a sunnah. The loving of the household of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is fard. But when we look at these people who knew what Islam was and who knew the price of Iman, and we see how they lived their lives and how they were willing to give their lives and the lives of anything else and everything else for Allah and His Messenger. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is what Imam Hussein al-Islam is revitalizing, giving life back to, is this understanding. Inshallah, I'll end here. Today is the 28th of Safar. So the next few days, Rabiul Awwal will start. Starting next Friday, I will change subjects. But then after Rabiul Awwal, we'll come back to Imam Hussein al-Islam, inshallah, and continue from there. You know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us understand and fill our hearts with His true love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of those whom they love, inshallah. Those who have not made sunnah, go ahead and make sunnah, inshallah.